Good afternoon, sir. My question to you is this. We are currently facing an issue where a lot of young professionals are leaving the country in search of greener pastures. And of course, there have been initiatives to bring them back, but do you think that what we have right now is good enough to attract these professionals back? And if so, do you have any other strategies or suggestions that you can use or perhaps recommend so that our talent comes back to our country and serve us better instead of other places? Thank you.
Questions, please. Dr. Sri, I was having a function with Tan Sri, Dr. Andrew Sheng with Universal yesterday. Can you please give us a gist of the new economic model and the middle income strategy of the Malaysian government? Other questions?
Hi, my name is Aida. So you have mentioned about the professional services from 50% you try to increase up to 70%, depends on the, as you can make an example for the developing countries anyway. So what's coming back to me is a lot of education plan in terms of support way forward. We want to increase our services. But for example, Petronas recently has a new policy whereby you want to stop the international exploration and focus on domestic areas, which I don't think is a good, you can change for better. From my perspective, how do you support this? Why the education is not aligned with what we want? Because we are in 55 countries as we are right now, it's not happening overnight, and then we also want to focus on one country or one or two countries, which I don't think is a good way. But maybe perhaps we can give your point of view on that, or we make for better things. Thank you.
I'm more comfortable standing up. Thank you. Let me address the last question on Petronas. Firstly, there is this misconception that Petronas is withdrawing from its international involvement. That's not correct. Yeah, I would like to share with you. I mean, I'm not from Petronas, neither am I responsible for Petronas. But what Petronas is doing is to continue with its international involvement and operations, but at the same time scaling up its investments in Malaysia. The focus, and you asking me, the second question was the new economic model. So the new economic model, in terms of strategy, one is to, the first one, the strategic reform initiative, is to re-energize the private sector. And the private sector, as you know, the biggest component is domestic investment. And this is why Petronas has decided to Petronas will continue its investments in Sudan and Vietnam and China, yeah, and many other places in the world, Iraq, yeah, but Petronas is going to spend more money. And what we're trying to do now, for example, the government about a couple of weeks ago announced enhanced incentives for the exploitation of marginal fields. Yeah, in the last 4 or 5 years, there have been predictions by 2012. Malaysia will be net importer of oil. Yeah? That was a prediction made about 3 or 4 years ago. What we're trying to do now is to ensure that Malaysia continues to be a net exporter of oil. For that, you need to exploit marginal fields. For that, you need to put more money in the country, domestic investments. That's where Petronas is coming from. Yeah? So it is not correct that Petronas is abandoning the global agenda. Petronas will continue with whatever it's been doing very well in the past, but what it's doing now is to focus also on the domestic market. And there'll be opportunities. Yeah? I mean, Petronas, a lot of Petronas work has got to do with services, drilling, supplies, services, professional services. And these opportunities are in Malaysia and also abroad. On the new economic model, I'm sure you must have read and all kinds of analysis. Well, as you know, number one, we want to be high-income economy. Number two, we want to have sustainable development. Number three, it's got to be inclusive. Inclusive meaning Sabah, Sarawak. Inclusive meaning orang asli. Inclusive meaning rural. Inclusive meaning no one, will feel unwanted in Malaysia or marginalized. So this is all the new economic model. But basically, it's about doing things differently. It's about reform. It's about transformation. It's about meritocracy. It is about quality investments. From my point of view as Minister of Trade and Industry, we've been successful in attracting labor-intensive industries. We've done very well, Penang and inshallah. But going forward, we have to attract quality investments, and we're focusing more and more on services. The jobs being created in Cyberjaya, for example, by some top names in IT, some global banks, for example. I've been informed, for example, more than half of the job opportunities in Cyberjaya comes from the financial services sector. So the new economic model has got to do with reforming, changing the way we do things, doing things differently, focusing on quality investments, focusing on services, but the ultimate objective will be to increase the per capita income of every Malaysian. And you can understand how challenging this objective is. I mean, how to bring the orang asli, how to bring people in the remotest area of Sabah, Sarawak to the income level of 15,000 per annum. It's tough, but we have to do it. And we are committed to achieve the objectives of the Wawasan 2020 or Vision 2020. In terms of the talent cooperation, you know better than I do, what motivates people to remain in Malaysia or to leave Malaysia. In my view, there are a number of variables. One, of course, has got to do with the environment. Some people might feel insecure, either from security point of view. Some people might not be comfortable with policies, government policies. Number two, it's got to do with personal matters, pay, the family, your future. Number three, it's got to do with opportunities. These are probably three major variables which determine whether you remain in Malaysia or you leave Malaysia for greener pastures. What is important is that we have recognized that we have to change the environment. We need Malaysians. Not only do we need to retain Malaysians and bring them back, but we also want to make sure that we attract the best foreign talent as well. It is for that reason that last Monday, for example, the PM offered 20 permanent resident permits to 20 foreigners who have been working in Malaysia, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. We are opening up the talent market to foreigners as well. So these are the three variables. It's got to do with opportunities, the overall policy environment, it's got to do with some personal issues. So what we have done in the last 18 months is to change people's perception about Malaysia, to tell the world and tell Malaysians that we've got a new agenda going forward, and hopefully that will improve the environment. It's not going to be plain sailing. There are lots of challenges, but we've got to start somewhere. There's got to be a beginning. There's been lots of attempts in the past. In the last 10 years, I think probably only 200 have come back under various schemes. And some of them, when they came back, they found the environment not conducive. They've gone back to wherever they came from. Silicon Valley or London, whatever it is. That was, in the last 10 years, we have done this, but it has failed. It is for that reason we've decided to set up the Talent Corporation. And if we want to succeed, we've got to bring back talented Malaysians. We've got to retain young people in the country. A country without talent will be a country which will have no future. We are mindful of that, and we believe that with the changes we have introduced in the country, with the policy changes and the commitment for reform and transformation and a very good implementation agenda, we have Pemandu, for example, which monitors on every Friday. Every Friday, Pemandu monitors every single KPI, every single intention that we have published, and we have made known to the people to achieve economic transformation. So there is seriousness, there is commitment. Of course, we're not saying that it's going to be plain sailing, but we've got to start somewhere. And what's important is that we have made a good start. And I hope you guys will continue to provide feedback to the government, and we value feedback. And if there's anything we can do better, please let us know in order to attract the best Malaysian talent back to Malaysia, and also to retain whatever talent, all the talent that we have in the country. Thank you.
We're taking another batch of 3 questions. The lady first.
Assalamualaikum, Dato. Completely agree with you that we should move to a more service-based economy, and the NEM, the new economic model, is definitely timely. My question is, sorry, before that I should explain that until a year and a half ago I taught at UTP, and it is to my great distress and sorrow to find that the majority of the students who are the product of the Malaysian education system lack the imagination and the initiative, so they're more happy to be spoon-fed. So they also, I don't blame them, because they are the product of an education system that is very much exam-oriented, and there's lack of emphasis on the assessment of the internalization of the learning. My question is, with regard to the new economic model, is what are the government efforts or measures what are the measures that the government is putting in place or thinking of putting in place to ensure that we have the right human capital to support the NEM, and later on sustain the NEM, and hopefully eventually surpass or reform the NEM as time goes by? That's my question. Thank you.
My name is Vishal. I just have two things to say. One is actually a statement, and the other one is a question. I have friends, I'm sure we all have friends overseas, and I think from my previous discussions with a lot of them, especially in Australia, there seem to be this insecurity of our students abroad of what the direction is for Malaysia in its future. And I think despite many visits by our ministers, the Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister recently to Australia, I think there is still this distress among our students overseas, wondering whether they should be back in Malaysia or should they just stay overseas and finding passage back to the question that was being asked. The second question is, with the implementation or with the inception of the Italian Corporation, the question is, how can we really bring back our talent when we can't offer them what other MNCs offer them overseas in terms of packages, remuneration, quality of living, quality of education, and these kind of things. And can our companies locally afford these kind of packages within the next 6 years to reach 2020 with our GNI and our vision to be a developed nation? Thank you.
Take the last two questions from the back.
Assalamualaikum, Dato Sri. My name is Azlan. I just have one question. I would like to hear your thoughts on a small number but highly growing numbers of young, highly talented, highly skilled young professionals who decided to take the path of leaving their professions to do something completely different in pursuit of personal and financial freedoms, for example. And what is your thoughts on this? Because this small number of young professionals, even though they are small, but it's growing. They've been spending, maybe the government or other companies have been spending a lot of money on them to train them. However, they decided to leave their professions and do something completely different. And what's going to be the impact to the development of the countries or Asia in general? Thank you.
Assalamualaikum, Dato Sri. My name is Adam from the SC. I have two questions. One of it is the perception that Malaysians are a pretty insular society, especially with the ASEAN Economic Community of 2015. So I'd like to ask, what is the government's stance on this? Is the government paving way towards the success of the ASEAN agenda? Because it seems as though this sort of feelings need to trickle down to layman Malaysians, and it's not done so, and that's quite distressing. Second question is also, it's a more personal question. It's because I've chosen to come back to Malaysia, to work in Malaysia, and for me, being a layman in Malaysia, three things that concern me is basically pay, public safety, and also responsive governance from the government of Malaysia. And this is also because of the advent of new media, and a lot of my friends are involved in it. And therefore, I'd like to ask, how do you, and by extension the Malaysian government, feel about these issues, pay, public safety, as well as responsive governance from the government of Malaysia today? And what are your thoughts about it? Are you satisfied with the levels of public safety, with the levels of pay in the city? And how does the government strive to bring this forward in order to inculcate more Malaysians to come back and serve the country? Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's probably the last batch of questions because I got to run to Melaka, a 100-meter race to Melaka. Sorry about that. I hope there's going to be another opportunity to meet a smaller group of you perhaps. One Firdaus will organize a cup of coffee with some of you in the next few weeks so that we can discuss some of these issues in greater detail. Let me begin by our education system. I think that cuts across all the four individuals who asked questions in the last 5 minutes. There are two things about our education. On the one hand, all of you are products of the Malaysian, most of you, 95% are products of the Malaysian education system. So there's some good things about our system, although rote learning and memorizing and all those things, yeah? But when you go to the best universities in the world, throughout in every corner of the world, Malaysians have done well, yeah? The quality of Malaysian students, yeah? I mean, you all know this, yeah? I had breakfast 3 days ago with British investors. And they told me what distinguishes Malaysia from other countries, talking about Malaysian students in the UK, is that the quality of Malaysian students is a cut above many other countries. So that speaks well about our education system. You all are products, Standard 1 at least, you know, Standard 2, although some of you might have gone to UK, you did all your schooling overseas, but I think most of you would have done at least 1, 2, 3 years in this country. And many of you would have done, most of you would have done primary and secondary school. So there are some good things to talk about the education system. But I think the problem is those of us who continue, those of you continue in the local system, I think there's probably a difference. Yeah? There's not as much creativity, not as innovative, yeah? Not as aggressive perhaps. Yeah? So there are differences. So the system, I think, at least at the secondary level, is quite sound. Yeah? The fact that many of you have done well in some of the best universities in the world, and some of you topping your class, this goes to show that our system is quite good. Yeah? So that's the first point. But from personal point of view, I can see there's a gap developing in Malaysia. On the one hand, one of you, talked earlier about Malaysians being insular, probably, being narrow-minded, this kind of. There's a danger now. There are two opposing forces. On one hand, you have students who are open-minded, liberal, exposed to the best experience in the world. On the other, you have a group of students who are getting more and more narrow-minded, who are getting more and more parochial, getting more and more provincial in their outlook and orientation. I think, so this is happening not just in Malaysia, in many other countries as well. But going forward, what we need to do is to reduce this gap. Personally, I'm worried about this gap. Yeah? This gap between those who are very open in their orientation outlook and an equally large number of Malaysian students who are getting more and more parochial. The challenge for us is to see how we can open up those of us who are in the second category, those are becoming more and more narrow-minded, those who have a closed mind. So that's about insular, being xenophobic in some cases. The other, of course, is the command of a foreign language, it's Mandarin or Arabic or French or English. Yeah? That's something that we need to further develop and enhance. Otherwise, there's going to be this gap. And you talk about One Malaysia, you talk about inclusiveness, you have two separate forces, one becoming more open liberal, the other getting more parochial. On one hand, you have people, which in terms of language abilities are very narrow and restricted. On the other, you have people who command some of the best international languages. And for as long as there is this gap, then there will not be One Malaysia. So the new economic model, One Malaysia, is also about bridging this gap, bridging the divide, not only digital divide, but also the rural and urban. So those are my comments about education. On pay, safety, and governance, I'll start with governance. Yes, we recognize that there are many things that need to be done on governance. Yeah? This government acknowledges that down there, when we go to the people, yeah, especially the young, that's number one. The priority to young people like you is governance. Yeah? Whether in terms of integrity, in terms of corporate governance, in terms of how we govern Malaysia, in terms of institutions, in terms of politics, we know that that's the highest in terms of concern that's the highest among young people. The government is mindful of that. Therefore, we have done this. There's been a lot of changes. But of course, it is a process. Yeah? You must understand what's important when moving in that direction. But we all wish that we can leapfrog and graduate to this new mindset, this new paradigm tomorrow or now. But I know that the issue now is how fast we can move in the direction of better governance, institutions, government, politics. I just want to share with you that this government is committed. The issue is how fast we can move in that direction. Yeah? On pay, yes, whether we can afford, it's got to do with productivity. Yeah? Of course, we can't pay. I think if I talk to some foreign companies in Malaysia, some of them would like to maintain low wages for Malaysians, because if you push up wages, they say they will not be competitive. They will have to leave and go to Cambodia or Vietnam. So that's the reality. In business, the bottom line is important. And in most businesses, in many businesses, 70% of costs comes from labor costs. So if wages go up, there is this fear that we become less competitive and they will leave our shores and they will divest and operate in another country. So when you want to improve pay, of course, you have to increase productivity, you have to automate, you have to attract more and more knowledge-intensive industries. We know that until pay goes up, then it's very difficult to attract Malaysians or to retain Malaysians in this country. Public safety, this is also an issue. We have done lots of surveys, and in all these surveys, it has consistently come up. Public safety is a very serious concern to every Malaysian. There was a time when we can afford not to lock our gates. There was a time when we can afford not to close our windows in the evenings at night, to let the fresh air come into our rooms. Those were the days. Those days are gone for good. They're not coming back. They're not coming back anymore. Even in the villages, they steal your slippers, your bicycles, motorcycles. This is of concern to government, and indeed, this is of concern. And when you compare Malaysia with some other cities in the world, there's a lot that we need to do. But I want to share with you that we are serious about this, and overall crime rate has gone down substantially. Street crime has come down, and we believe we have made a lot of progress in that direction. The people living their profession, I think we welcome. I mean, it's not something that you should grouse or mourn. I think entrepreneurship, for example, we encourage you to become, you say small island, small great number of people not doing the kind of things that they were trained for. I think we have to go for mobility. We have to go for breaking down the walls. It doesn't mean you're trained in one profession, you need to be an accountant. I think going forward, there's interdisciplinary studies that's being encouraged in many universities. I think those of you with multidisciplinary skills are going to be highly marketable. So that's something, I mean, you've asked my personal opinion, that's something that we welcome. The quality of living, education, of course, remuneration, whether companies, local companies can afford. I think I have answered almost every question. I hope so. I hope so. But anyway, I think many of you in the last batch of 4 talk about education, talent. I think these are very important issues, and safety, and governance. If I may summarize, the concern among young people: governance, public safety, your future. These are the 3 main concerns. And I want to reiterate what I said earlier. We are committed on this journey of reform, journey of change, journey of transformation. The issue is how fast we get there. The issue is whether we can accelerate this process. I think for many of you, you want this to happen now, not tomorrow. And I think I would encourage you to continue expressing your views, and that certainly will encourage those of us, politicians, to work harder to make sure that this country continues to be a very attractive place to live. I must share with you, there was a dialogue on Monday with these 20 people who were offered PR by the Prime Minister. And one of the things which stood out when we had this dialogue was that these foreigners, these expats, enjoy the quality of life in Malaysia. They're very comfortable in Malaysia. Yesterday, for example, I met one Korean, one of the most successful Korean entrepreneurs. He's got 2 houses, one in Nusajaya, one in Iskandar, one in KLCC. and he's now spending 2 weeks here in Malaysia with the family. So I just want to, there is this disconnect. I mean, on the one hand, we have some Malaysians expressing concern. On the other, I just want to share with you, there are foreigners who are comfortable with Malaysia, who want to live in Malaysia, yeah? And these are people that I believe are very comfortable in this country. So going forward, what we need to do is to further improve the environment, further improve the governance, further improve public safety, and if we can get these things done, I'm sure that we can retain our professionals in this country and attract some of you to come back. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry I cannot entertain any more questions, yeah, because I got to leave one of the function in Malacca, which is a long way from here. Yeah, we all have to work hard. Yeah, we politicians have got to work hard. You have to work hard as well, I'm sure. Yeah. It is becoming more and more competitive. We got to go to the ground. We got to talk. We got to engage. There's got to be a lot of face-to-face communication, and this is why I like this bunch of people. I think what's important is engagement. What's important is respect. What's important is tolerance. What's important is the mood for discussion. And once again, I would like to commend you for putting this together. And it is a pleasure for me to associate myself with this very good initiative, this very important venture. And I wish you well. Terima kasih. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.